Okay, well, welcome to another movie review stream. My name is Mark McPherson, film critic for movieswithmark.com. And we are right in the middle of July, so we've got some big summer movies to talk about. Obviously, the biggest one that we're going to be reviewing today is going to be the Fantastic Four First Steps, the latest, the latest iteration of the Fantastic Four by the Marvel, technically by the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We'll get into that. We'll also be reviewing, if you're not big into superhero films, you also got a smaller film called Sorry Baby, which is the directorial debut of Eva Victor, which is in regards to moving on from abuse, and it's kind of a bit of a dramedy. I'll explain a little bit about that. I'm excited to talk about that. And we'll also talk about a horror film. We have the sequel. Technically is a sequel, despite the title of I Know What You Did Last Summer. Feels like there should be a subtitle there, but it's just a sequel where they didn't feel like the need to put on a tagline, which is pretty lazy. So we'll get into that. So yeah, we got three big reviews to talk about today. But before we get to all that, if you'd like to stay up to date on the latest movie reviews, like Fantastic Four, which is coming out this weekend, so you're getting a bit of review here. It's going to be spoiler free, so if you're worried about spoilers, don't worry. I'm not going to spoil anything. I don't know how much I could spoil. It's Fantastic Four. I mean, it takes place on different Earth, but maybe that is a spoiler. But yeah, if you like to stay up to date on the latest movie reviews and stuff like that, as well as check out different video essays I've been doing, be sure to like and subscribe for all that. I have a Patreon in the bio of this video that you can check out for supporting my books on movie history, and be sure to read all my reviews at movieswithmark.com. All right, there we go. Got the CTA out of the way, so let's get straight into our first review, the Fantastic Four. And let me get my notes up here. Alright. Just gonna make sure I have all the notes here. And make sure I don't reveal any spoilers. There aren't a lot. But I still want to try to avoid them, so I try to write them down. Alright. Okay. Alright, so here we go with review of Fantastic Four. First Steps in 3, 2... Hang on, I gotta push that up there. There we go. And here we go. So Fantastic Four, First Steps, is the Marvel Cinematic Universe's first attempt to do a Fantastic Four film. And look, the Fantastic Four movies, they haven't had the best track record. They had the Roger Corman film that got shelved. They had the Fox era Fantastic Four that was pretty underwhelming, when you go back and watch those two films they did. And then, of course, there was the Fan Four Stick, whatever you want to call it, the one with Miles Teller, which ended up just being a big mess. It was trying to be body horror and didn't quite deliver on that. It was a mess. And First Steps, it would be so easy to just, compliment this film as just being, yes, it's the first competent Fantastic Four film that doesn't feel like a mess. I mean, that alone would probably garner enough praise, but I was actually very impressed with how this version of the Fantastic Four wasn't afraid to embrace the 1960s from which it was born. So, embracing kind of more of the Jack Kirby elements, also the a lot of the retrofuturism with the additions of stuff like the Fantastic Car and Herbie the Robot. But I think just the biggest thing about this, I think that makes this film work is that it focuses on the Fantastic Four more as a family. You care about these characters immediately instead of just, getting the standard introduction. It's very much, like James Gunn's Superman from earlier this year, which is that, a lot of people are probably familiar with these superheroes. So why not just, get their origins out of the way in the most in the best way possible of building the world up as you're telling us about it, and they do here. So we get to if you're not familiar with the Fantastic Four, you get introduced to all of them here. You have Reed Richards played by Pedro Pascal. Of course, he has the ability to, as Mr. Fantastic, to stretch his limbs to any length, and that does play into his character of wanting to do everything and learn everything and be everywhere all at once, and kind of learning that he can't. And of course, he's married to Sue Storm, who is played by Vanessa Kirby, who has the ability to turn invisible and generate force fields, and basically she pushes herself a lot in this film to kind of maintain this family a little bit. You know, she's not on her own to bring everyone together here, because everyone generally loves each other. Especially, like, you know, you would think there'd be a lot more friction with, you know, Johnny Storm, who plays like the Human Torch. He can set himself on fire. He's played by Joseph Quinn. You think he'd be, you know, a little bit more egotistical and brash and, you know, go against the grain. But no, he really digs being in this family, especially when he plays off of Reed's friend, of Ben Grimm, played in the film by Eben Moss-Bachrach. And there's like a natural ease between Ben and Johnny, where it's just like they just kind of feel like fun little brothers, you know, who just like they bicker a little bit, but they generally love each other. And I love that the film starts off this superhero ensemble, you know, just like they're a great family unit, you know, like they've had these powers for quite a long time, and, you know, they've gotten used to them. They've gotten used to, you know, not only using it for the benefit of, you know, of like New York that they're trying to protect, but also using it to, you know, better bond as a family. Because I mean, the one thing that struck me immediately was just like the warmth between the characters, but also the smarts between them. Like it never really feels like these characters are, you know, like they talk down to each other, or, you know, they reduce them too much. Like it felt like, you know, Ben Grimm could just be, you know, like the big, just like the tank who doesn't really think that much. But no, he's got a great personality. He loves to cook. You know, I love that they ground him a lot more by having him, you know, be like a staple of the neighborhood, the way that he connects with people, the way that he establishes a romance with Natasha Lyonne's character of Rachel. So they do a lot of great world building in this film, especially that they ground them enough so that, you know, they've gotten used to not only handling supervillains on the regular, but also kind of working out a deal with them to kind of like, you know, make the world a better place. So it feels like, you know, everything is perfect for them. And here's what I love so much about using like kind of like the 1960s retro futurism setting for this, is that it plays into that era of, you know, having a lot of hope for the future, but also you know, being so certain of everything that you feel like you have this safety net that can never be cut. And then, you know, of course, you got to have some conflict then, of course. So, you know, then the Fantastic Four have to face off against the biggest villain that they could ever fight, which is Galactus, a giant planet-eating monster, played in the film by Ralph Ineson. And they don't know what to do. So they've gone from just, you know, understanding everything about this world, knowing how to tackle supervillains, knowing how to make great technological advancements, trying to figure out, you know, what else exists in space. And here they are faced with this problem of not knowing what to do and having their unity and their bond threatened by that. So it very much felt like, you know, like the 60s style, like they weren't just using it as a style. Like there are some great looking sets here and there, and not to mention the music by Michael Giacchino. And at first, like, I didn't go into this film looking up the composer, and when I first heard like the music start up for when they were introducing the Fantastic Four, I kind of thought to myself, oh, is this a Giacchino score, or am I just, you know, having more flashbacks of like The Incredibles and Speed Racer with like the similar orchestra here? But no, it was Giacchino, which I'm sure is probably going to garner some easy comparisons for to The Incredibles. But, you know, The Incredibles, you know, the inspiration for that was cyclical anyway, so, you know, that's just the way it goes. But yeah, I was struck by just like how much love there was for these characters, that you cared about them when of course, you know, they get to the big giant fight here when they end up, you know, going against Galactus, and to a little bit of a degree the Silver Surfer, played by Julia Garner, but also just, you know, there is a warmth to them where it feels like they're trying to, you know, like this family is not just trying to like save the day and save Earth, but also try to find a way to keep everybody on the same page, because like they're not just tasked with saving their planet, but just, you know, bringing everyone on Earth together, which is a monumental task. But the fact that these superheroes have been working on it for so long, and the fact that they're able to get along with each other, just really made me love the film, and especially just loving these characters just hanging out with each other. Like anything as simple as just like, you know, making dinner, or just like, you know, running errands, just little things like that was just so much fun. And I think this is probably the biggest flaw of the film as well, which is that, you know, like the film was like it's brisk, like it's just under 2 hours, and it goes so quickly in establishing its world and all the different little details and the the 60s billboards and the television programs and the magazines and the publications. All these great little details are in there, but it goes by so quick that the biggest flaw of this film, and maybe this is kind of like a good flaw you'd want to have, but I never felt like I got enough of this version of Earth with this version of the Fantastic Four, that I just wanted to hang out with them. And I think like the biggest casualty, I think, of this type of film is that we don't really get as much with Ben Grimm, because it felt like everything was there was like such a rush for like the maintaining of the family unit and the saving of Earth, that we didn't get a lot of time to explore the other characters here. Like Johnny Storm has a whole bit where he's trying to figure out the language of the Silver Surfer. I thought that was really cool. That kind of gave him something to do and kind of like prove himself to, not just that he's, egotistical and horny. He's a little bit horny for Silver Surfer, but that he still has some intelligence to him. And also like Ben Grimm, like I think that this is probably my biggest qualm with the film. It's just like we get so little of him, and there's like such a natural ease to Ben that I wanted to see more of him. Like I wanted to see, we have a great setup for that. Like I love the scene where he's just outside of school. He impresses the kids by, picking up a car, makes like little jokes here. Like he's not trying too hard for a laugh. And then the way he kind of flirts with Rachel and talks about, how he loved, growing up in this neighborhood. It's like, that's an adorable scene. And I wanted more of that. I wanted like to have that scene where like they go on a date, or where she kind of like questions like like the formation of his rocks, just little things like that, just to like build up these characters more. Because like for every like time we did get like moments like that where it's just like characters interacting with each other and having a natural ease to like the comedy that was going on, we'd get right back to how do we solve the Galactus problem? Like how do we protect Earth? Do we move it? What do we do? Do we conserve power? It kept shifting back to that. So I guess like that's kind of like a good problem to have with the film, which is that you just want to you want to spend time with this.
Clapping hands emoji, clapping hands emoji, clapping hands emoji, fire emoji. Your videos are always something I look forward to. This is just to show my appreciation. Hugging face emoji, about to go watch F4, cool face emoji.
Thank you so much, Oliver. Thank you so much for the $10. Glad to have your support. God, it's been a while since I've got some of those super chats. Oh, where was I? Okay, so like Fantastic Four. Just I love the setting. I love the family element, and they really do lean hard into the family moments here. And I think that's very wise for this type of film, which is just. Did that go off again?
Work. Clapping hands emoji. Clapping hands emoji.
It just went off again, didn't it?
Clapping hands emoji. Fire emoji. Your videos are always something I look forward to.
Thank you, Oliver.
This is just to show my appreciation. Hugging face emoji. About to go watch F4. Cool face emoji.
I don't know how that kept going on. Thank you so much, Oliver, if I didn't say it enough. All right, God, since I keep getting thrown off track here, I should probably wrap up the review here. So, for taking place on, was it like Earth 828 here? It felt like, this is like a much different film, and not just because it takes place on a different Earth. It felt like there was a different tone here. It's brightly colored. It embraces the absurdity of the Fantastic Four. Like it has like the classic suits. It has Herbie the Robot thrown in there with this kind of like, 2XL looking face. They even throw in like, villains you think would be too goofy to have, like, like the Mole Men and stuff like that, and bringing up other villains like the Wizard, before we get to like the bigger threat of Galactus. And it has like a natural flow to it. It doesn't feel like it's just like, oh, here's like this fun, colorful version of the Fantastic Four, and then here comes Silver Surfer and Galactus to make it grim and dark and ruin everything, and that it threatens, this wondrous vision of the future here. No, it actually has a good progression. It does play into the themes of sticking together with family and with unity and just, making the characters lovable. I had more fun watching these characters try to install a baby seat in a car than I did watching them, punch out, Galactus or set him on fire, because they can do that. They have these cool powers, and they do put them like to good use. And I love the fact that the powers here are very restrained. Like, because that was kind of like one of my big issues with like the past Fantastic Four films, is that it didn't really feel like it felt like they were just finding busy work for these characters to do something. Like, like Johnny Storm has this power of like flame, to like soar through the air, to like suck up fire and all that. And like, what is he gonna do with that? Like, is he gonna like just light cigars with like his thumb? Is that it? There's got to be more he can do with that, especially with with all the visual effects we have nowadays. There should be like a better use of it, but also a restraint on it, so that you care enough about these characters so that by the time, yes, when we do get to the big climax where they fight Galactus, yes, they are going to use their powers. They're going to use everything to their ability. But up to that point, you like them, I didn't really feel like I was losing something by not having them constantly punching somebody or fighting somebody. Like, just having them figure out problems and interact with each other and form relationships better. Like, that's the good stuff. That's the family unit. That's what makes Fantastic Four, so exciting, and what made this version, head over heels above the other films. Like, and there's a lot of stuff that makes First Steps work better than the other Fantastic Four films. Obviously, if you want to go on like the bare bones, you can compare like the visual effects. Yes, they're better. The writing here is better. Villains like Galactus and the Mole Men are much better used in this film. But just ultimately, the core of it is just making these characters likable and lovable and intelligent. Like they have like really smart ideas in this film, and they're constantly challenged, which again really does well for like the 60s. Like it started reminding me a lot of stuff like Pleasantville, where at the end of Pleasantville, all these characters who thought they had everything in life figured out, they get to the very end and everything has changed, and they're just like, where do we go from here? And they're like, I don't know. And it's like, it's such a like freeing moment. And it's very much the same here with like Fantastic Four. It's like, yes, there is stuff they don't know about. Like there's, and of course, if you've seen the end of Thunderbolts, there's something bigger implied with that as well. There's, entire universes they don't know about. They still don't even know how Galactus works all that well. But it's exciting because then you don't know what the future is going to hold. There's going to be good stuff and there's going to be bad stuff, but just embracing it all together is what makes the Fantastic Four so much fun. So yeah, it's bright, it's colorful, it's cheerful, but just the way that it establishes the characters and gives them enough to do and makes them grounded enough so that you care about them more in terms of their personality rather than their superpowers. That's what made First Step so much fun. So yeah, I was very much surprised with how much I fell in love with Fantastic Four First Steps. All right, so Fantastic Four First Steps will be in theaters tonight. And, tonight is the Thursday previews, obviously. And then it'll be, all day tomorrow, starting this weekend. So, probably be big. And also, once again, thank you so much, Oliver748, for the $10. I didn't even know that repeated. It's been a while since I've like checked these settings, so thank you for that. Thank you for the support. There's more movie reviews and video essays on the way. So thanks for sticking with me here. All right. Oh God. All right. Let's take it down a notch here and go to something a little less intimidating, I guess. It's a little intimidating, but it's much more low key. I will say this: if you're not big into superhero films and you want a good film to watch at the theater this weekend, you should probably go see Sorry Baby. I would say go see it at an art house film though, because this is very much a very quiet film, and if you're seeing it next to if you're seeing it next to a theater playing either Superman or Fantastic Four, there's gonna be some bleed. Like I was in a pretty good theater, but it was, we were right next to Superman, and I could hear a lot of it during a lot of the down moments. But one moment here, just gotta clear my throat. There we are. Okay. Now let's get to why is my throat that hoarse, man? You can tell how old I am. That that I threw my voice out getting excited over Fantastic Four. It is probably the most exciting film I'm going to review today, so I guess there's that. So I'll try to take it down a notch for this one. All right, here we go. Review of Sorry Baby in 3, 2, 1. So, Sorry Baby is a dramedy written, directed, and starring Eva Victor. And, you know, I think, like, Victor's film here is really... God, she has this kind of, like, mastery for, you know, going into a dramedy with, like, the most tricky subject. Because the whole premise of this film... It centers around like her character of Agnes, who they establish, you know, she's a professor at this college, but she used to be a student, and she reconnects with her old friend Liddy, played by Naomi Ackie, and you know they have a natural charm to each other. They have very earnest conversations. They catch up after a while. They talk about what it was like being back at college. They talk openly about sex. They talk about how Liddy is in a relationship and she's gonna have a child, and then just like catching up with friends. But then they allude to the fact that that there is something darker in her past. And they eventually reveal it. It's kind of told in like a little bit of a non-linear bookended type story where it bookends with like her time as a professor and the time where she was a student, in which she found herself in a very awkward stage, which is that she was very accomplished, she was a very good student, she loved writing about literature, but then she started coming on more to her professor, Professor Deckard, played by Louis Cancelmi. And it feels like this is like a standard teacher starts coming on to student, and you get the feeling like there's like a power dynamic going on here. In fact, the film straight up alludes to the fact that that they're drawing a bit from Lolita here, which the film brings up Lolita a few times, specifically because they review the book in class. But I love one section where Agnes talks about how some people are offended by the material of Lolita, but you can't help but keep reading it just because it's so well written. And I feel like that's very much the case with Sorry Baby, because this is a very well written film, and it might surprise people because like the whole premise around the film centers on the fact that Decker rapes Agnes, and she kind of like tries to find a way to deal with that, which ultimately she realizes that she can't. Like Decker ends up leaving the college. She can't really face him down, and Agnes just has like a hard time just moving on from that, and trying to like pursue a new relationship with her neighbor Gavin, played by Lucas Hedges, who's a good guy, a sweet guy, but that she's not afraid to be open that like the sex is okay. It's not great, but for someone trying to get out of like that dark mindset, he's nice to have around, and I like that the film doesn't arrive on easy answers for what Agnes is going through. Like, of course it is traumatic, and I especially love the way that that the film approaches like the inciting incident, because there's that moment where Decker invites Agnes over to his house, and we know what's going to happen. We know what is going to transpire the moment that she goes in there. But the way that it's shot, like we don't follow her into the house. Like we're just sitting outside. We're like that friend who's just gonna like be there for Agnes, but we're just outside watching the house. We see nothing going on at the windows. We see lights on, but we never actually see like the rape happen. And then night falls. She comes out of the house, and we just follow her back to her car just silently. She gets into her car, and we just sit there with her, just nothing said, while she's driving back to her place, just remaining silent until she can get to Liddy and tell her all about this experience. And it's dark, but it feels like you're right in that awkward situation where you're not quite sure what to say, and the scene just kind of like lingers on that. And I think that's what like Eva Victor does really good with this material, is that she knows how to just let scenes play out. Just sit with them. Just, embrace like the situation itself and the ambiance, and just, take in like the awkwardness. Because while you're following Agnes back to her car and just sitting in the car with her, there's this constant questioning in your mind of, okay, if I were there with her right now, what would I say? Like, what do I say anything? Do I ask her what's wrong? I mean, you could, but she probably wouldn't say anything. You just get to her car and just drive, because I mean, it'd be that traumatic. So, yeah, you constantly think about where you go from there. And what's fascinating is how the film kind of finds like the comforting answers, not like the solution to all of it, but like the comforting tone to go to next, which might surprise people, is the fact that it goes to comedy. Because there's a lot of moments here where, just like after that situation, Agnes, she's still traumatized. She still has, fears of answering the door, and fears of being in bed, and fears of, pursuing sex with like Gavin and stuff like that. But also just like, she just connects with Lydia. And like sometimes, you just have to find something, some levity, some reason to like keep going on. And I love the fact that, Lydia's just there for her, and they find jokes in like the most unexpected places. Like at one point, when they go into the doctor to get her tested after being raped, they kind of, Agnes and Lydia kind of like low-key mock the doctor with how he tries to remain clinical, and they just kind of like mock his terminology. It's like, oh, that's what you call it? That's not quite what happened. Like, this is what happened. And there's like this, and like I said, there's a lingering nature where they just hold on that moment for just long enough where you kind of have to like smile and smirk along with them. And there's a lot of just like wonderful moments like that just feel so human and relatable to just, trying to find a way to move on. And Agnes finds a few ways to move on. I mean, she gets a promotion. She finds a cat on the street that she takes care of. And if you're wondering, no, nothing bad happens to the cat. The cat's fine. It's just, another little companion. And it gives her something fun to do when she goes to the grocery store. But there's, I think, probably the best scene that encapsulates both the earnestness and the warmth of this film is that there's one scene where Agnes interacts with a sandwich shop owner played by John Carroll Lynch. And, and Lynch's character, like, he initially, like, comes up, you're just like, okay, you're having a panic attack, let me help you a little bit, calm down, here, eat this sandwich. And you think, like, okay, there's gonna be, like, some cute, like, sentimental dialogue here, but it's not. Like, it's still, like, John Carroll Lynch is, like, he's being blunt. He's, like, saying, look, you're gonna grow up and things are gonna get worse for you. Like, it got worse for me. Look at me. I look hideous. He's, like, screaming at people who are in dumpsters. He's kind of like mocking Agnes a little bit, saying like, life isn't that simple, and yeah, it finds just the right moments of humor there, but also like a bluntness for how to like move on with life. So it's like, yeah, like, and it's like, it's one scene with John Carroll Lynch, but he makes it work so damn good that it's just like, oh, it's one of my favorite scenes in the film. It's why I've tried to like get like that perfect, I've tried to get like that image for my reviews where it's like, it's the shot of Agnes sitting with like her feet spread while she's eating a sandwich, and John Carroll Lynch is at like a distance, and he's just kind of like trying to connect with her. I love the way that it's set up there, and also the New England setting. I love the way that they have the cinematography here that kind of embraces like the coldness and the almost kind of like a little bit of like the natural wonder of that situation, which I do think helps with like a little bit more of the levity, because it doesn't just look like picturesque and all that beautiful. It feels like a believable, small town New England college setting, where there's, just a few open fields, a little bit of snow on the ground, you throw on your coat, you go visit your pal over at the college, I love just like the little details of making like this setting believable, and just like the earnestness of the dialogue, and the fact that there's little like subtleties. So like they establish how Agnes is having like problems with trusting people and trying to find a reason to live, and the fact that it all culminates with Agnes kind of like talking to a baby to kind of like realize the duality of life, and how like if you can embrace like the good with the bad, and not excuse the bad, but try to find a way to like live on, and like it, and just kind of like realize that there is like a little bit of something to live for. I think that makes the film so endearing without making it melodramatic, because this is material, it could go so melodramatic. It could just lean hard into like that artificial sentimentality that comes with like the trauma of being raped, but it feels like, because like this is like a script, like this has to be like a minefield of trying to find the right moments to be serious with the trauma and the right moments to find comedy, and Eva Victor just navigates it easily. She's like, okay, this is a good moment for humor. Let's stay here for a while. Or, this is a very traumatic moment. Let's hang out here for a bit. And just that natural progression, and just the way that the film kind of divides itself up into chapters, it very much presents like this complete picture of someone's life and how they kind of like progress. And it was just refreshing to see like that kind of, that kind of relatable type of character with this type of like biting dialogue that makes it such a perfect dramedy. So yeah, like it's wonderfully dramatic where it needs to be. It's humorous where it needs to be. It has great characters. Eva Victor just melts into this role with ease, where it's easy to like her, but it's also easy to pity her. And sometimes at the same time, you pity her and you're laughing along with her. I think the best scene with that is like there's a scene where she's picked for jury duty, and it's a scene where like she's being blunt about how like she doesn't believe there is justice. In fact, she literally says that at one point, and that scene comes right before she's questioned about her application, where she has to answer how her friends view her, and she crossed off. I think it was like she crossed off like smart or something like that, and she wrote in tall. And it's like that's a great joke, and like they linger on it just enough before they move on and start taking things like more seriously here. So yeah, just Eva Victor just knocks this one out of the park. Like she presents a dramedy on a difficult subject that is just wonderfully like sad and hilarious at the same time. So yeah, I absolutely adored Sorry Baby. So Sorry Baby should be playing in a few theaters right now. I think it's expanding. Sorry if I didn't get to the text here. Hey, Scorn. Good to see you again. Let's see. I was hoping this week to see Bambi the Reckoning, but my theater isn't showing it, sadly. I was kind of surprised, too, because I've been looking to see where that's going to pop up. If it's not... I'm almost kind of curious to check if... Sorry Baby is A24, so it'll probably be playing somewhere, but yeah, smaller film like that. I'm also kind of worried next month for the Toxic Avenger, because I also heard that's going to be in very limited release too. So I'm kind of it's going to be a rocky August trying to like find when these films are going to be playing. So Suck says, I saw Sorry Baby at Sundance and I loved how it played everything as a solitary person would be in that situation, as somber and matter of fact. Yeah, it's it has a surprising amount of realism in depicting its setting, and I don't know, maybe it's just because I went to college in like Minnesota too, so I'm used to like that kind of like snowy setting. So I don't know, I found it relatable on that level too. Let's see here, Danielle Wadood, if I'm saying that correctly, says, "Hey Mark, I'm new to your channel and I'm growing as a progressive left-leaning college student through your videos. I loved your media literacy and criticisms on film. Keep at it. Keep up. You're inspiring." Thank you so much, and you keep at it. Keep learning as well. I'm not a professor on anything. I just read a lot of books and I write a lot. So I mean, I guess. For most things, I guess like that's good anyway. But yeah, just keep learning. Don't just use me as a resource. In fact, tell you what, I'll do this right now. I will recommend a book that I've been reading right now, and I think I got this in like I was just grabbing like books from like half price books, and this one, the Value of Radical Theory. I've actually found this book very surprising. I mean, it talks about Marxism and political economy. And it's like I love the way it's like it just it's brutally written. So yeah, I've been reading that. Also, I've been trying to figure out different stuff for essays, so I've been kind of going back to Media Virus, which is like, this is, just to clarify, this is dated material. This was written in the 90s. But that's primarily why I was reading it, just because I found it fascinating how this book brought up how Pee-wee's Playhouse had gay subtext in it. And it's like, this is in the 90s, so even they were recognizing it. Also, they do cover a lot of the Willie Horton stuff in there, which I'd read a lot about, like the Willie Horton political ads, but I think that book goes a lot more deeper into it, and also relates to how it could tie into the internet as well. So that's a great book. All right, let's see. Okay. All right. So let me get some water in me, and we'll see if we can finish this last film here. And this one won't be too hard. Like, I was kind of struggling to mention the acts and the structure of Sorry Baby. I won't have to struggle with I Know What You Did Last Summer. There's not much to say on this film. Alright. So here we go with I Know What You Did Last Summer. And here we go in 3, 2, 1. So I Know What You Did Last Summer 2025 is a sequel to the I Know What You Did Last Summer films. Now, you would think it would be a reboot, or at least like kind of like a soft reboot type deal, but no, it's actually a sequel, because they bring back, you know, the old stars of Jennifer Love Hewitt and what's his name? Freddie Prinze Jr. They bring them back here, and you know what I found kind of interesting about this film is how it's kind of like how thoughtless it is about what it's trying to say with its mystery setting here, because like I was never that big a fan of I Know What You Did Last Summer. I kind of found it was just a dopey slasher. But you know what? I was kind of excited for this new version, because you know what? My expectations were really low for that horror franchise. So maybe if they could find something more to explore with this material, or just, you know, if they recognize that it's a dumb slasher, make it even more dumb. But, you know, to quote The Glass Onion, it's not so smart it's funny. It's just dumb. It's flat out, and not dumb in like a fun way. It's like it's dumb in the fact that they didn't really put that much thought into these characters, or the mystery, or the premise, or the motivation, or just or anything. Like, it's just a series of slashers, you know, bringing back the old serial killer of Southport, you know, like the guy in like the Fisherman Skimmer and The Hook, and you know, it didn't really have, like, I mean, aside from like, you know, like the you know, Southport having like the fish angle, they don't find much more to, and you know, there's only so many kills you can do with like a hook and like a harpoon, and that's about it. Like, there's only so many ways you can gut people before it just becomes boring. And that's the biggest problem with this new version of I Know What You Did Last Summer, is that it doesn't really try that much. Like, we establish a bunch of characters that, you know, in true dumb slasher fashion, you don't care about these characters. Like, they're really hard to be likable. Like, you have Danica, who is, you know, just come into town, you know, to be there for her friends, and she kind of has a crush on Milo, but there isn't really much chemistry between them. They don't set up much. They just say, oh, there's kind of a thing between them. They're there for their friends, Ava, who is just an astrology-believing ditz, and then there's Teddy, who is just a buff, boneheaded Nepo baby. And they're all pretty much just established as that. And when I say established as that, I don't mean they show. I mean they just flat out tell you. Like, this is what they do. These are their quirks. We're not going to explore them. You're just going to have to, you know, believe us when we tell you that these are their characters. And that made me all the more depressed for when they bring, like, you know, kind of like the underdog into this friend group, which is Stevie, who is just like this poor girl who, you know, she's not as rich as these other friends, and she has like, and you would think like, yeah, like she has, you know, a lot to lose and a lot to gain by these rich people dying, that I was kind of rooting for Stevie immediately. It's like, I like this character, you know, I'm rooting for her to kind of like survive this. I thought, oh, Maybe she'll be the final girl in this. But that would actually require some thought into what's going on here. Instead of just, like, this is a film that's so focused on just the mystery of, like, who could it be? Who could the killer be? And never exploring the motives. And there's plenty of motives here. Like, there's a religious angle. There's a conspiracy angle. There is, there's a gentrification angle. There's a bitterness about relationships. There's so many different motivations, and none of it is explored. And I think that's just because they want to treat whoever this killer is as kind of like everything is red herring. Like, you have no idea who it is. Like, okay, cool, but if we're not exploring any of the motivations, then there's no reason to track everything as much as the characters are or care about them. And just all the characters are just so ill-defined that I didn't care about any of them because they didn't do the work for any of them. Like, at one point, one of the earliest victims is Eva's husband, who she talks to her friends about. She's like, oh, well, my husband is a bit of an alcoholic. And we don't really see much of that toxic element to him, not even to hate him. Like, we do see a scene of him drinking among friends. He's cheerful. And then later we see a scene where he's privately drinking some vodka. And that's it. Like, there's no, like, stumbling around. There's no, like, slurring of his words or saying the wrong thing or embarrassing Eva or just, being, like, a messy drunk who just stumbles into getting killed by the killer. There's nothing there. It's just like, here's the bare bones of setting up these characters, and then we're going to kill them. It's like, why should I care? Why should I care about these rich folks getting gutted and slashed in their giant, spacious homes and their luxurious, big-ass yachts? It's like, why should I care about them? And there is no reason to care about it. Like, at that point, you're just watching to see these characters get killed, and even then, the kills are not even that impressive. Like I said, only so many times you can use a rusty hook. Only so many times you can use a harpoon. That even the killer gets bored. Like, at one point, the killer just hangs somebody, like just just ties them up, throws them out a window. Not to mention that kill at one point has one of the victims pull off the killer's mask. And they say, oh, it's you. And it's like, who? No motivation has been set up here. Especially, like, this victim has no attachment to anyone else. Like, thinking who could be the killer or who could be the victim. So it's like, what's the point? It's like, it's the bare bones of, like, getting excited about who could the killer be without putting in any of the intrigue or the effort. And it's just like a series of kills that I didn't care about. They're not even that gory. There's only one kill I found really impressive, and it's a scene where someone gets where I think someone gets like a corkscrew shoved through their neck. It's like, okay, that's a good kill, but that came after so many of these other, like, okay kills. It's like, yeah, someone gets stabbed, someone gets a harpoon up the chin. It's like, I'm not digging on any of this. Not to mention, oh god! When they bring in the cameos of Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr., like they do this thing I hate when they have, like, legacy sequels, which is that they make the music swell and then they get a really good close up on them and they zoom in. And it's like, hey, remember these characters? Remember the old film from the 90s? Do you remember these characters? And it's like, I think they hold on that, expecting that the fans are going to clap. And I was in, like, a full screening room. Nobody clapped. No, one person said, oh yeah, that was that character, and no one else was all that excited. Not to mention, like, there's no reason for these characters to be here other than just, they could be the killers as well. But, like, they're brought in to, like, kind of, like, give advice to the new generation of slasher victims, and they don't have any. Like, all they say to these victims is like, look, I've been here. So here's what you gotta do. You gotta go out, you gotta find that killer, and you gotta kill him first. And, in a smart film, in a film that would, have some smarts to, staging these dumb teenagers getting killed, there's a good joke in there. There's a joke where you could just, have the victim say, that's it? That's your advice? Go find the killer and kill them? Oh, wonderful advice. Glad I went to you for advice. But they don't. They treat this as, like, legit strategy that they have to go find this killer. Now, if if for whatever reason, like, there is like a surprise cameo, and if anyone really wants like the surprise of it all, I won't reveal the killer here. But I will say this though, the way that the film ends, and I have to believe that this was accidental. The implied message by the end of the film, because the film like gives up having a point by the end, like it's just kill after kill, and then just stating like witty punchlines, which are really bad. Like they're so terrible. Like the punchline after they finally kill the killer is, "Oh man, I hate 4th of July." It's like, what about 4th of July was, holding back this investigation or this killer or anything? It's a nothing punchline. It means nothing. It's just like, oh, that's kind of funny if there were any attachment to the holiday or relation to it or any connection. But by the end of the film, there's this very gross implication about how these rich kids should be allowed to go kill poor people. That's and like I said, it stumbles into this messaging by the end, but like, and I get that, and it stumbles in there because it gets to this point where the characters learn nothing. There's nothing learned in this film. The motivations don't mean anything to these characters. All they realize is, I'm going to get killed. Got to kill this person. Oh, we killed them. Great. Wow, that was fun. That's not a fun mystery. That's not a fun horror film either. Like there's no... like they do have a motivation for like the character, for the killer wanting to gut all these rich people. I don't know how much of a spoiler that would be, but then the characters don't care. It doesn't force them to observe something better within themselves. It doesn't force them to grow. It doesn't force the Southport community to like take better inventory of the community that they're festering. It's just, oh, we did that, that's done. Here's the punchline. Yeah, that was a 0 out of 10 summer. God, I hate this movie so much. Like, there was a chance to do something, fun with the dumb slasher genre here, but like, there was nothing to build on with I Know What You Did Last Summer, and this new sequel somehow ends up being even less than what the original film had to offer, and it didn't have much. So yeah, it's a mindless thriller. It's so dumb, and not so dumb that it's funny. It's just aggravatingly dumb. Yeah, I Know What You Did Last Summer is, I don't care what these kids did last summer. They're just a bunch of rich brats who still end up as rich brats by the end of this film. So yeah, I know what these rich kids did last summer, and I don't care. It would be a much more satisfying film if just Southport blew up. If just everyone got brutalized there. Why not? Just clean the slate. Ensure there will never be a sequel, because there probably won't be after this film. So yeah, that would have been way more exciting than just this standard, sloppy, dumb slasher film with characters I couldn't care less about. So I Know What You Did Last Summer might be in theaters this weekend. Probably not, though. It didn't do that well. So, yeah. Let's see here. NMMN says, I just saw it. It was really good. Oh, wait. Sorry, I'm a little bit behind here. Scorn says, you would think they would add a subtitle to let people know to know it was a legacy sequel, not a reboot. And especially, like, yeah, you don't have to hide from it. Like, the Scream films, they have the Roman numerals on them. Final Destination had a new film this year, Bloodlines, which really did a fantastic job. That's like one of my favorite Final Destination films. You can bring back all these old horror franchises. You got to find something to do with them, and this one doesn't. Doesn't with the title, doesn't with the premise, doesn't with the characters. Just nothing. Just anything. Just blow up Southport at that point. I'd probably care more about it. Scorn says, sounds like you would have more fun watching Screamboat rather than the sequel. At least that one was dumb fun and knew that it was a bad movie. Yeah, if you can find the dumb stuff to have fun with, I think you can. And to a little bit of the film's credit, I Know What You Did Last Summer does try for some jokes here and there, but oh my god, do they fall flat. They are so limp and just like duds that you want to like bury your head in your hands. It's like, is that really the joke they're going with here? Like, dead silence in the theater, with no one laughing. There are a few times when people did laugh, and I think they might have been like unintentional at a few moments, but the scenes that were intended to be jokes. Just they weren't there. There were no laughs there, unfortunately. Let's see. Daniel Badu says, "I will 100% check out those books. Thank goodness. Thank you for your recommendations. Yeah, sure. Let's see. Also got my name. Oh, glad. At least it looked like it was phonetic, so I was trying to pronounce it that way. Which is good because I usually mispronounce names. So thank you for the the spelling you had there. Scorin says, "What about the fourth? The hell kind of line was that looks like the next horror movie I can look forward to is either Black Phone 2 or VHS Halloween on Shudder." Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, like the first Black Phone I loved, so I'm curious to see what happens with Black Phone 2. VHS films I'm always down for. I'm always down for a good, retro horror anthology, and the last few films have actually been pretty good. I wasn't as big a fan of the their what was the last VHS? The Cosmic one that they had last year. I wasn't as big on that film, but I did really like VHS 85 and 99. Those are really good sequels. So yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with the next one. And there's a few horror films I think that are coming out later this year. I know there was the trailer for Five Nights at Freddy's 2, which I am not excited. I'm not that excited about, but I don't know. I didn't really like the first film at all, but I think the fact that my expectations are now like basement level low, I might actually like the sequel. If they try, if they lean into some stuff, I might be more forgiving of it. VHS Beyond, yes, that was the one. That was the one. Like, it was a mixed bag. Cause like there were some ones that I really didn't like. I didn't like the gimmick of like the one where there were parachuters and then they land. They just gotta survive these generic looking aliens. But then I really like the short that they closed the anthology with, which is where that woman gets abducted by a spaceship that keeps that keeps going to like hyperspeed, and each time it does, the woman gets battered around in the ship and ends up getting injured. But the ship has nanomachines that repair her, but it doesn't know how to repair her physiology. So each time that she gets hurt, like, she just keeps like mutating more and more. It's like, that's really clever. I like that idea. And it was really fun the way that it played out with the little VHS recordings. Yeah. Has to be the shout out to the Nickelodeon game shows. Yeah, that bit was pretty good. I did like that. I like the pull out from that as well. How they start with like the game show and the accident that goes wrong, and then they pull out to show them getting revenge on that little set there. That was really good. Yeah, there's like there are definitely segments I don't like, even in like the VHS anthology movies that I love, but that's what's so cool about them. It's like they're a mixed bag. You crack them open and you get like some that are really good and some that are kind of okay and some that are not. So yeah, I'm always down for the VHS anthology. I kind of would, I know they probably won't do it again, but I kind of would like to see more of like the ABCs of Death. I know they kept that going for a while, and I know it's a massive undertaking. It's 26 short films that you got to cram in, and they got to be like really, really short. But I honestly, I thought the format was kind of fun. I like having like those really, really short shorts that go through like every letter of the alphabet. And I say that as someone who didn't really dig the majority of the ABCs of Death films. I thought most of them were not really that good, but the few that were was like, oh, okay, that was kind of worth it. And it has potential, like with any anthology horror. All right. Oh God, I need to get some more water there. All right, let's do a quick recap of the films we reviewed today. On today's stream, we reviewed the Fantastic Four: First Steps. It's easily the best Fantastic Four film, but that's a very low bar to cross. But Marvel Studios really knocked it out of the park by embracing this kind of like 1960s retrofuturism, while also tying in that uncertainty of the era to, tackling something like Galactus and just having like a great family unit. So yeah, this film got the Fantastic Four right by making them more of a lovable and intelligent family. I reviewed Sorry Baby, a bit of a somber but fun dramedy about one woman dealing with rape and how to try to move on from that and try to find something worth living for. Eva Victor wrote and directed this film. She did an amazing job, finds just the right moments of drama and comedy to explore with this rickety subject matter. And finally, I reviewed I Know What You Did Last Summer, a film that is just more of a dumb slasher that finds nothing to explore. You know, the Scream films came back, they found something to explore. The Final Destination films did as well. This film finds nothing, and it just has a really stumbling, gross message about saying that rich folks should be allowed to kill whoever they want. So that's probably the worst film on this list, and probably one of the worst films I'll see this year. We're only about halfway through, but that would probably be on my list for sure. So, of the 3 films that I reviewed, I mean, the 2 obviously that you should go see at the theater are The Fantastic Four or Sorry Baby, and it's 2 wildly different tonal shifts there. Like, if you like really good superhero films and don't just want to settle, Fantastic Four really is the complete package. But if you're over superhero films, if you don't want it, you want something original, you want something that feels human and earnest and not sentimental drivel, Sorry Baby is perfect. So there's plenty of good options at the theater. Alright, so if you like more early reviews like Fantastic Four First Steps, be sure to like this video so that others can hear about the film as well. But also, be sure to subscribe so that you can stay up to date on the latest films. Because we're about halfway through the year right now, and I know that a lot of you are new subscribers to this channel, so you might not know, but come fall, it's award season time, and I cover a lot in there, including films that won't be released for like weeks or even months. At one point, I reviewed, I think, like Robot Dreams. That didn't come out for like 6 months, I think, after that. So you can stay up to date on the latest movies by subscribing to this channel. If you'd like to support the YouTube videos I'm making here, I have a Patreon as well, where you not only get early access to videos, but you can also get copies of my movie history books, which I'm currently writing. I just wrote a book on the history of Saturday morning cartoons, and I'm currently writing a book on banned movies. So if you would like to get a copy, be sure to go to my Patreon, sign up on the tier list there at $15 if you want a hard copy. I think I have like a $3 or $5 tier if you want a digital copy as well. Either way, and by the way, the digital copy is also a PDF, so you don't have to worry about signing up for Kindle or anything like that. If I give you a digital copy, it's PDF, you can read on your own. If I give you a hard copy, I'll send you it straight in the mail. So yeah, what have we got coming up? Well, next week I'll be reviewing comedies. As it turns out, we got some comedies coming up. Which is great because comedies are rare. So we're gonna have Happy Gilmore 2, the long-awaited sequel to Happy Gilmore with Adam Sandler returning to the role, but also the film I'm more excited for, The Naked Gun, starring Liam Neeson, who is perfect for the role of playing like the next Frank Drebin or Frank Drebin Jr. However, I'll have to see what they do with the new film. But yeah, we will be reviewing that, and possibly, I don't want to jinx it. There is one other film I was going to try it again. But yeah, so tune in next week for reviews of definitely Happy Gilmore 2 and the new Naked Gun film. So, yeah, if you'd like to read reviews of everything I've talked about here, you can read them on my website, movieswithmark.com. Support me on Patreon if you want some movie books. Those are coming up. And if you want early access to more video essays, I will have these reviews posted sometime either tomorrow or during the weekend. And I have more video essays on the way, so all that. So thank you so much to everyone who joined me on the stream today. Scorn has always been here. Great to have you back, man. As always, good to always see you on the live stream here. Special thanks to Oliver3748 for donating $10 and showing some support right after you went out to go see Fantastic Four. You're gonna love it. Trust me, you're gonna have fun, especially if you go see it in IMAX. It was a treat to see this in IMAX. So yeah, thank you so much for the $10, and to everyone else who stuck around to watch and have been new subscribers. I know we've been getting a lot recently. Yeah, thank you for all your support. So I will catch you all next time, where we will review The Naked Gun and Happy Gilmore. So until next time, I'll give the standard Megaforce sign off, which is the thumb kiss. So see you next time, folks.